Assalamu alaikum, friends. After hearing the story we are going to tell you today, your heart will be touched. For this request, you will see the incident to the very end. Oh, friends, the incident is the story of the life of a man named Nasir. He said, I had only been married for 3 months, and already I received the news of my wife's death. I never thought that my wife, who gave me so much love, and with whom I could not even express my love properly till now, would leave this world so soon. I have left no stone unturned to fulfill his love. As he asked, I did the same. But my wife left me. But the real story started after my wife's death. That no just broke me. Rather, it showed my relationships with people in a good way. As the news of my wife's death spread, people from my wife's father's house came to our house. Her mother started telling me that she started saying, "You killed our daughter." She was very happy when she got married. He told us that now my funeral will come out of that house. You really took his funeral out of the house. Aren't you ashamed? You have wronged my daughter so much that she died without saying anything. And in such a situation, what else would I have explained to them? How would I have told them that I could not have any relationship with my wife so far? And how would I do injustice? I think our relationship has not deepened so far. I couldn't go to her even after I wanted to. He used to get so much shy that if I told him something, he would shyly turn his face away. In this way, our family passed 3 months. Also, another big event happens. That worried me a lot. The people of the wife's father's house were saying that we will take the dead body to our house and bury it in our graveyard. And then the people of my house started saying that now he is our responsibility. That is why we will bury him here. But one of the wife's father's men was very insistent. He says, "We will never let our daughter be buried here. Enough is enough of the oppression you have done to our daughter. Now we can't leave it here after death." Then somehow they took Mayet out of here, and they took my wife to their house. I was very worried at that time, but my relationship with him did not end. So I went with him. I was very worried about burying my wife. As I lowered him into the grave, my body trembled and remembered my own death. I wanted to leave this world with my wife, but I can't do that. Then someone pushed me from behind. When I turned back, I saw the man who had pushed me to bring my wife's mother here was too insistent. He said to me, "Oh brother, will you now lie in this grave? Get out of here." I found his assumption to be a bit strange and disgusting. Then I moved back from the grave. Then his grave was quickly buried with soil, and all the work was done. Then the person started saying, "Now don't joke like non-Muslims here. Everyone went to their own homes, and you were Mia. Oh, will you leave this world to mourn my wife? Go to your home and give time to your mother." I was very worried to hear such a person. But what else would I do? At that time, it was like I couldn't say anything. After that, I quietly came to my house. After coming home, my mind was crying in a very bad state. Then I went to take out my mobile phone from my pocket to call one of my friends. Then I saw that my phone was not in my pocket. After seeing this, the bale was removed from under my feet. Oh, I got very worried. After thinking that maybe I had left the mobile somewhere in the road, I noticed that my pocket was a bit lighter when I came from the cemetery. I didn't know what to do at that time, but I had left my mobile phone somewhere in the graveyard. Then I left home, and life without mobile seemed stagnant. But after that, I quickly reached the grave, where my wife is buried. As soon as I got there, my full attention fell on the graveyard. but I couldn't see my mobile phone anywhere. I started looking here and there when an old man came to me and said, "What are you looking for?" It seemed that the old man looked after this cemetery. I said, "Uncle, I left my mobile phone here and left. I am looking for it." Then the uncle asked, "You put your mobile phone in the grave again, Nito?" "Yes, it can be." Actually, when I was looking at the grave, someone pulled my camise to remove me from the grave. It seems that my mobile phone fell down at that time. Then I got a little worried and started to think that my phone fell into the grave. Looks like now I have to dig the grave. Then the man said, "How are you talking?" The man said this, closed his ears. "Because of a 2,000 rupees mobile phone, you will break the law of Almighty Allah. If you do this, all the people of your wife's father's house will come and kill you. Don't even think about doing this, and they will then think you killed their daughter." I was very surprised that how this person knew about my house, and that person also knew that this woman was my wife, and that the people of that house were angry with me. Thinking about it, I was a little surprised how this person knew so much about me. But at that time I remained silent, and at that time my grief was so much that I quickly returned home. And after coming home, I told that to my mother. Mother said, "Oh boy, what is there to worry about? Don't worry so much if you buy another mobile. And now, after your wife's death, if you don't have your mobile with you, then you will be more worried. Control your thinking. That I give you money, you buy yourself a new mobile." I then started saying that I had many numbers in that mobile phone. "But since you said to buy another phone, then I will do so. You give me the money." After that, Mom gave me money and I bought my new mobile. I inserted a new SIM in that mobile. But then something happened that worried me a lot. It was 12 p.m. and my phone was not getting signal. The first number I dialed when it signaled, I remembered my old number. I think I did this to check the signal. My thinking was that since my mobile had fallen into the grave, it must have gone bad by now. But every time I called, the numbers started ringing. After seeing this, my body shuddered and I felt fear. My mobile is in the grave and it is ringing again. But what happened next surprised me. After that, my phone was answered, and after this happened, I stood there surprised, and my mother was also very surprised. Seeing what I am doing, Mother asked me, "Father, where are you going?" I replied, "Mother, I am going to my wife's grave." Mother said, "What happened before you went on the pretext of mobile phone?" Now what happened again? That at this time of night, you're going to your wife's grave. Mother's saying I have to go. I left the house. I didn't know how worried my mother was for me. At this time, only one thought was working in my mind, and that was my wife's thought. For after all that I had heard, I could not sit still. I had every right to investigate the matter after I went to that cemetery. But every time I stepped into the cemetery, I saw the old man who looked after the cemetery. He started saying, "Hey, what are you looking for here again?" He said this in anger. I said, "Your job is to dig graves. That's what you do. Don't ask me again and again why I came here." Then the person started saying, "I am telling you for your sake. You have no idea about this cemetery. I live here, so I have to fulfill the responsibility. That's why I asked. If there is any problem, tell me." After that, I tell the person everything. A color came to his face after hearing this. Another color is gone. And he said, "I don't know anything about this. But I must say one thing. This relationship is with your wife. Your wife's grave is not with it. And you tell the people of your wife's house about this and find out. Then you will understand yourself." If I say something, it will hurt, and I don't want to make myself guilty because of this. You go and find out for yourself." I understood that he didn't want to tell me anything. He seems to have taken money from people at my wife's father's house. It could be for saying no or any other reason. Then I went to my in-laws' house. There I saw everyone sitting in a room talking about me and my wife. When I went there, my mother-in-law told me, "Why did you come, father?" Then I told him that there was a problem. Saying this, Ray started saying, "We have a problem. We can't find my niece. Help me find him." After that, I forgot everything and took that sister's tension. But I decided that night I would dig my wife's grave. Then at 2 p.m. I dug the grave, and so did the old man. Was asleep. Dig the grave and see that there is no one in the grave. And I already knew about this, because when I received my call, someone said that if you don't pay your wife's debt, your wife will end today. Then I thought that an angel cannot say that. And angels? Or why talk to me? I doubted. Then I suspected that he was my wife's cousin, because he has not been seen since my wife's death. Then, after a week of searching, I got his address, and when I went there and knocked on the door, my wife opened the door. When my wife saw me and tried to run away, I grabbed her and dragged her into the car and told her, "What's the story?" Then my wife started saying I was helpless. My cousin used to come to our house regularly, and he told me that he would get me modeling and took me to the city. He then took many bad pictures of me and forced his physical desires with me. Since then, he started blackmailing me. When my mother came to know about this, she gave me in marriage. But my cousin did not agree, and he had to blackmail me. After that, my mother told me to pretend to die, and then I will get you married to that boy. Then I did that, and later they abused me, but did not marry me. They were using me. They were using me, and I'm helpless. After hearing this, I fell silent and started consoling her. And I said that I am with you, friends. Here's another great story for you. Let's start. In the heart of Pakistan, we're nestled within a bustling town where the sounds of vendors and the aroma of street food filled the air. There lived a young woman named Zara. Zara was known far and wide for her stunning beauty. Her delicate features and graceful demeanor drew admiration wherever she went. But beneath her flawless exterior lay a heart hardened by pride and entitlement, fostered by a life of privilege and indulgence. Zara had grown up in a wealthy family where she was the apple of her parents' eyes. Her every wish was granted, her every whim indulged. This life of luxury and ease molded Zara into a woman who believed that the world owed her everything and that she deserved only the best. This belief guided her decisions, including her choice in marriage. Zara's parents arranged her marriage to Saad, a humble government servant who was well respected in the community for his honesty, integrity, and hard work. Though Saad was not wealthy, he possessed qualities that Zara's parents valued: steadfastness, a strong moral compass, and a deep love for their daughter. However, for Zara, these virtues meant little compared to wealth and status. She had hoped to marry into a family that could provide her with the same level of luxury she had always known. When she first met Saad, she was unimpressed by his modesty and the simplicity of his life. But, bowing to her parents' wishes, she agreed to the marriage, confident that she could change Saad's fortunes, or at least mold him into the man she wanted. The wedding was a grand affair, attended by hundreds of guests, with lavish decorations and a feast that stretched late into the night. Zara was the star of the evening, her beauty enhanced by her richly embroidered bridal attire and the heavy gold jewelry that adorned her. Saad, dressed in a simple yet elegant sherwani, couldn't take his eyes off her. To him, Zara was a dream come true, a woman of grace and beauty, and now, his wife. He vowed to himself that he would do everything in his power to make her happy, and to provide for her, and to build a life together filled with love and contentment. In the early days of their marriage, Saad worked tirelessly to please Zara. He showered her with love and attention, hoping to win her heart. Every morning, he would wake up early, prepare for work, and leave with a silent prayer on his lips that the day would bring him closer to earning Zara's love. He took on extra work, stayed late at the office, and saved every rupee he could, hoping to give Zara the life she desired. Despite his efforts, Zara remained distant and cold. She appreciated none of his gestures, dismissing his gifts as too simple and his affections as inadequate. The small apartment they lived in, though neat and comfortable, felt like a cottage to Zara, far removed from the opulence of her parents' home. Zara's dissatisfaction grew with each passing day. She began to resent Saad for his inability to provide her with the luxuries she had grown accustomed to. She would often compare him unfavorably to the husbands of her friends, who lived in large houses, drove expensive cars, and showered their wives with expensive gifts. "Why can't you be like them, Saad?" she would ask, her voice tinged with disdain. "I deserve better than this. You knew what kind of life I was used to, and yet you bring me here to live like this?" Saad, though deeply hurt by her words, remained patient and loving. He tried to reason with her, explaining that while they did not have much, they had enough, and that together they could build a better future. "Zara, I know this is not what you had imagined, but we have each other, and that's what matters most. I'm doing everything I can to make our life better, but we must be patient. With time, things will improve," he would say, his voice gentle yet filled with earnestness. But Zara's pride blinded her to Saad's love and the sacrifices he was making for her. She continued to berate him, her words cutting deep into his heart. "You say we have each other, but what good is that if you can't even provide for me properly? I deserve a life of luxury, not this poverty," she would snap, turning away from him, her heart closed off to the love he offered. As the months passed, the distance between them grew. Saad's once joyful spirit began to wither under the weight of Zara's constant criticism and disdain. He still loved her deeply, but he felt helpless, unsure of how to bridge the growing chasm between them. He tried to find solace in his work, in the company of his friends, and in prayer. But the pain of Zara's rejection was always with him. Then came the day that would change everything. It was a day like any other, filled with the usual tension and unspoken words. That evening, they had been invited to a dinner at a friend's house. Saad, ever the optimist, hoped that the evening might bring them closer, that perhaps in the company of others, Zara would be kinder to him. But his hopes were dashed when, during the dinner, Zara began to mock him openly in front of their friends. She ridiculed his job, his salary, and even his appearance, making him the subject of cruel jokes. Saad, though humiliated, tried to maintain his composure, but inside, he felt as though his heart was being torn apart. When they returned home that night, Saad could no longer contain his anger and sorrow. As soon as they stepped inside, he turned to Zara, his voice shaking with emotion. Why, Zara? Why do you treat me this way? What have I done to deserve such cruelty from the woman I love? I have given you everything I have, and yet it is never enough. Do you not see the pain you cause me with your words? Oh, Zara, her own anger flaring, responded without a trace of remorse. Because you are not the man I wanted to marry. I deserve better than you, Saad. You may love me, but love doesn't put food on the table or clothes on my back. I will not settle for this life of mediocrity. Saad, his heart breaking, realized that there was nothing he could say or do to change Zara's mind. She was too consumed by her pride, too blinded by her own desires. In that moment, he made a decision that he had never imagined he would make. With a heavy heart, he uttered the words that would seal their fate. If that is how you feel, then I release you from this marriage. I divorce you, Zara. The words hung in the air like a heavy cloud, their finality sinking in. Zara, though momentarily shocked, quickly regained her composure. She had wanted out, and now she was free. Without another word, she packed her belongings and left the home they had shared, her heart filled with a mixture of relief and uncertainty. Zara returned to her parents' house, expecting to be welcomed back with open arms. But what she found was far from the warm reception she had anticipated. Her father, who had always adored her, was disappointed in her for abandoning her marriage so easily. He had hoped that marriage would teach Zara the values of patience and humility. But instead, she had returned home unchanged, still the same proud and entitled girl she had always been. Her mother, too, was less than thrilled to have her back. Zara's presence in the house disrupted the peace, and her constant complaints about her failed marriage only added to the tension. Her siblings, who had families of their own, resented her intrusion into their lives. They saw how Zara refused to take responsibility for her actions, blaming Saad for everything that had gone wrong. As the months went by, Zara's situation grew increasingly difficult. Her father's health began to decline, and her mother's patience wore thin. One evening, after yet another argument, her father finally spoke the harsh truth that Zara had been avoiding. Zara, you must learn to stand on your own. We cannot support you forever. It's time for you to leave this house and find your own way in the world. Zara was stunned. She had never imagined that her own family would turn her away. But deep down, she knew that this was the consequence of her own actions. She had burned bridges with Saad, and now, even her own family was pushing her away. With nowhere else to turn, Zara began to search for a job. It was a humbling experience for someone who had never worked a day in her life. She applied to several companies, but was met with rejection after rejection. Finally, after weeks of searching, she was offered a position as a receptionist at a small office. The job was far from glamorous, and Zara struggled to adapt to her new life. The work was tedious, and her co-workers were indifferent to her. She found it difficult to keep up with the tasks assigned to her, and her once beautiful hands, now roughened by work, served as a constant reminder of how far she had fallen. But it was during these long, lonely days at the office that Zara began to reflect on her life and the choices that had led her to this point. For the first time, Zara allowed herself to see the truth. She realized how her pride and sense of entitlement had blinded her to the love and devotion Saad had shown her. She remembered the way he had tried to make her happy, how he had worked tirelessly to provide for her,